As we established last week, in lighting our third candle on this journey through Advent, John the Baptist is so important in preparing the way for Jesus Christ's ministry. I'm going to read to you from Matthew 11, 1-6, and some of the reports that were coming back about Jesus. After Jesus had finished instructing the 12 disciples, he went on from there to teach and preach in the towns of Galilee. When John, who was in prison, heard about the deeds of the Messiah, he sent his disciples to ask him, "Are you the one who's to come, or should we expect someone else?" Jesus replied, "Go back and report to John what you hear and see. The blind receive sight, the lame walk, and those who have leprosy are cleansed. The deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the good news is proclaimed to the poor. Blessed is anyone who does not stumble on account of me." Well, disturbing reports about the ministry of Jesus might make John, who at this time is in prison. Remember, John the Baptist is in prison. He gets news about Jesus, and perhaps there are news coming in different directions, but he's perhaps having second thoughts about Jesus. Jesus Christ maybe is not all that he was expecting. Jesus was mixing with the wrong people. I don't mean the wrong people of power. I mean the sick and the outcasts. And what is all this saying to John? He sent his disciples to ask Jesus a very, very important question. Are you the one who is to come, or should we expect someone else? In other words, have we got it wrong? Have I got it wrong? Are you really the Messiah? Jesus explains that by observing his ministry, they would be able to see what and who he was. So we read in verse 5, the blind receive sight, the lame walk, those who have leprosy are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the good news is proclaimed to the poor. There's your evidence, says Jesus. Now we read from verse 7. As John's disciples were leaving, Jesus began to speak to the crowd about John. What did you go out into the wilderness to see? A reed swayed by the wind? If not, what did you go out to see? A man dressed in fine clothes? No, those who wear fine clothes are in king's palaces. Then what did you go out to see? A prophet? Yes, I tell you, and more than a prophet. This is the one about whom it is written, I will send my messenger ahead of you, who will prepare your way before you. Jesus, in a way, is confirming John's role. He was more than a prophet. He distinguishes himself as the greatest of all, and yet there's something remarkable. It tells us in the verse that follows our reading, truly I tell you, even amongst those born of women, there has not risen one greater than John the Baptist. Yet whoever is least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he. What an amazing verse. That John the Baptist is the greatest of all human beings to ever live to that point in time. Then Jesus switches it round and says, and yet, even the least who hear the good news, who believe, who are changed in this generation, even the least of those are greater than him. This is wonderful news. It's the gift that comes to us in Jesus Christ. John the Baptist, an amazing character. We read about him in John's Gospel, the 3rd chapter, where it tells us that there's this sense in which we must know what it is to decrease and he must increase in our lives. That's exactly how John the Baptist saw it. He fades, if you like, into the background, and somehow to the forefront, to front of stage, comes that amazing character of Jesus Christ, our Saviour. We've heard of one young man telling his story of change in his life. And you know, the whole Christian story is of the power that God gives to us for our lives to be turned around, to be given possibility, to be given hope. And there is no experience that is beyond the reach of God's ability to be able to do something for us and in us and make us new, wonderfully new people through his grace. And John the Baptist, when he checked out Jesus, he sent his disciples, check him out. I need to know. Perhaps he needed to know because he knew he might never leave that prison again, and certainly he didn't. And when he did, he left as one who perhaps no longer knew what it was to have his life. And when he was in that place, he needed to get it straight. Is this worth it? Is what I'm doing in prison here worth it? Well, the news that came back is, yes, it's worth it. And if you want to see the proof is in the pudding. The proof is in whether people who are blind see, and whether people who are lame walk, and whether people whose lives are dysfunctional and hurt are put together again. This is the amazing work. So as we continue to journey through this Advent season, we thank God for all those people that God sends to go ahead of us. And John the Baptist had this amazing ministry to go ahead of Jesus, to be the forerunner, the preparer for the message of the Saviour. When we journey to Christmas and we eventually will light our central King candle, we'll know what it is to share that wonderful news in the best sense of all.